Hello, LAWsome listeners. Matt and I just came off of just a really wonderful, very full conversation with Darren Wurz. He's a financial advisor, works with law firms, and has a significant amount of experience in this space. And clearly, on the finance side, finances can drive emotions, and that's something we talked a little bit about in the discussion. And with that, I'm really fascinated with the simplicity that Darren brings when it comes to the ideal model, or what I'll say a framework, if you will, on how to manage your income. So often, lawyers have, they're known to have great incomes and make a lot of money, but Darren speaks to how even, making $1 million a year, you can be looking at a lot of stressors in life if you're not managing that money well. And so again, the framework piece that he brings to the table, I believe, brings a lot of clarity for law firms who just simply need something to keep them in the rails or on the rails when it comes to managing finances. What do you think most listeners will take away from this discussion, Matt?
Yeah, I agree, Tanner. I mean, the clarity that he brings to what we know can be a very unstable and at times unpredictable financial model, right? Especially with personal injury or any contingency-based law firm. I really enjoyed the discussion about, law firm owners and their potential exit strategies, growing their business to be repeatable and saleable, and it can exist without them. And he really, in a short period of time with us, covered everything from growth to profitability to exit strategy, just the complete picture, just a wealth of knowledge. And the fact that he is specific to law firms, like we are, I think just brings a lot of value to the listeners. I really enjoyed the conversation with him.
I agree. You all are going to enjoy this one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another LAWsome episode. I'm your host, Tanner Jones, along with my co-host, Matt Smyers. Today's episode, we're talking with Darren Wurz. Darren is the founder and CEO of the Lawyer Millionaire Founders Network and the managing partner at Wurz Financial Services. Today's topic, it's a candid conversation about law firm finances. What's keeping attorneys up at night? That's a real question, and excited to dig in with you, Darren. So welcome. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Tanner. I'm excited to be here with you.
So, Darren, let's jump right in, and I want to start with a question that I'm hopeful is relevant to all of our listeners. Um, you know, Unpredictable income for any business owner is a huge challenge, right?
Yeah.
For lawyers in particular, and then even more so for the clients that we represent, which is almost exclusively personal injury lawyers or law firms that are taking their fees on some sort of contingency, right? As a financial planner, how do you walk business owners, personal injury lawyers through that challenge of the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of their income?
Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, that is a common challenge we hear law firm owners, anywhere from solo to small firm owners facing all the time. There are some key steps you can take to fix the cash irregularity issue. It starts with number one, keeping your personal and your business finances separate. I know that should maybe be common sense, but I see a lot of cases where money is flowing back and forth between the business and the personal side of things. There are business expenses on the personal cards. There are personal expenses on the business accounts. And it's really important to have that clear delineation between what is your business and what is personal. So I think that's really step number one.
Yeah.
Step number two is paying yourself. And you may think, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? My cash flow is lumpy. How do I pay myself a regular salary? Well, I tell you what, it really does help you. Psychologically, it helps you plan for paying yourself. And then when your personal finances are stabilized, you're in a much better position to be able to run your business effectively. So, this is a common best practice. I really picked this up from Greg Crabtree's book, Simple Numbers. Step number one for business owners is owner compensation. Getting that down, making sure you're paying yourself a market wage, making sure you're paying yourself regularly. Set it on auto pay. So that way it's a bill. I've got to pay myself. That's step number 2, I think. And to keep things simple, step number 3 would then be trying to set up separate bank accounts for different purposes. At the Lawyer Millionaire, we really like the Profit First system. In fact, we help our clients set it up. We use Relay Bank. We're big fans of that. If you're not familiar with Profit First, it's basically a way to systematize your finances in your business by using separate accounts. So you have a specific account for taxes, where you're saving money for your tax prepayments and your tax payments at the end of the year. That's really important because you do not want the IRS to be your lender. And I see it all the time. I see law firm owners who are 2 or 3 years behind on paying their taxes. And I'm like, what? No, we can't be in that position. That just creates so many headaches. And then you have other accounts, one for your owner's compensation specifically, one for profit, which is where you're really prioritizing things, one for operating expenses. And you can really customize it for you based on what makes sense. And the last thing I left out, I'll throw this in there. You need to have an emergency fund, both for the personal and for the business. The business needs an emergency fund. That's really, really critical. And systematizing your cash flow can help you build that emergency fund up.
Yeah, I've heard you in some of your podcast episodes and elsewhere. I've heard you use the phrase "treat savings like you're paying a non-negotiable bill."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what the Profit First system allows you to do. It allows you to treat profit like it's a bill. So you start out, you take 1% of everything that's coming in and you set it aside in your profit account. You're calling it profit. You're taking your profit first before anything else. Now, you may not actually be profitable, but by setting that aside, you're creating a good discipline for yourself, and you are treating savings like a bill. It's a non-negotiable. It has to go into that account. And then at the end of the quarter, you'll be surprised. You've got money left over. You've got extra money to pay down debt or make profit distributions or whatever you need to do. But yeah, that's really, it works the same way in the personal world too. You treat your savings like a bill. Many times law firm owners are responsible for their own retirement savings. So you really have to prioritize taking a percentage of your income and setting aside for your future self and your investments and your retirement savings.
And I love just the visual of this. And you talked about putting the income into buckets, right? And when you're covering lumpy income, as you've referred to it, if you are disciplined with putting it into those buckets at those designated periods of time, you're helping to smooth that process out, right? You're smoothing out the lumps a little bit. And I love the emergency fund, right? Because a lot of lawyers listening might say, well, yeah, but how, if I pay myself now, I might not be able to cover this for the building or, payroll or whatever it might be. But if you're allocating resources into those individual buckets as you go, you're left with fewer surprises.
And you're making life just so much easier for yourself. So many law firm owners I know are way behind in their bookkeeping. They may even have a bookkeeper, but they're 3 or 4 months behind. And so they don't know where they stand at a given moment's notice. When you use a system like Profit First and you have different buckets of money for different purposes, I can go into my Relay account at a glance. I know exactly, okay, we've got money for payroll. We've got money for operating expenses. We've got money for taxes. I can see the buckets. I can see that there's money there. And I know that we're in a good spot. The other thing I want to add too is so many law firms are 1 or 2 months away from missing payroll. 1 or 2 bad months away, right? 1 or 2 bad months of poor collections and they're not making payroll. So it's so critical to get ahead of that cycle and have the cash set aside. And having a systematized process for how you manage cash flow is a great way to do that.
Makes a ton of sense, and I love the discipline in that structure, and ultimately that'll breed even more discipline, if you will, within the business, which I'm sure you've experienced yourself. I think that the end goal, at least to me, seems like when a lawyer first hangs a shingle and they're stepping out, assuming a pretty significant amount of risk, that the end desire for a lot of lawyers is to reach financial independence. And I'm not sure if that's a phrase you personally use, Darren, but I am curious. First of all, how would you define financial independence for a lawyer, and how should they be thinking about that?
Yeah, I think it's a good word. Sometimes it gets a little bit overused, but I think it's an appropriate word for lawyers and law firm owners, because many law firm owners don't think about retirement in the traditional sense. They don't necessarily want to retire at 65 and then go have this different lifestyle, right? Post work and post retirement. For many lawyers and law firm owners, practicing law is a really important part of their identity. So they don't envision themselves really ever retiring. So what we aim for is what we call, I like to use the words work optionality, which is you're in a place where you don't depend on income from your business anymore, right? The business can cease to exist and you'll be just fine. And that's a great spot to be operating a business from. Can you imagine the confidence that a person has when they can say, well, I don't need to take on that high risk client who I don't really like, right? I can pick and choose, and I can be a little bit more free in how I make decisions for my business. So that's really where we're trying to get to. And we really see it in like 3 phases. Phase 1 is the struggle phase. It is the grow revenue at all costs, right? We are reinvesting every dollar back into the business. We've just got to get revenue going. Unfortunately, I see so many law firm owners who stay stuck in phase 1 because growth is addictive, right? And growth is all around us. Everybody's shouting at us, grow, 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 right? And that's great, but at a certain point, you need to there needs to be a shift in your thinking to, you can keep growing, fine, but it's time at a certain point to start maximizing profit. And that's when we really start to grow wealth, right? It's so easy as a business owner to spend money. This would help me grow. I need to invest in this program. I need to sponsor this event. I need this software, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's no money left, right? And so what are we doing all this for, right? We're doing this to take care of our families. We're doing this to be able to step back at a certain point and not work as hard. And if we're ever going to do that in our lives, there has to be a shift from growth to maximizing profit. And that's where we start to become a lot more disciplined in our business, planning our taxes more carefully, managing our cash flow a lot more carefully. And then the third and final phase is the wealth phase. And that is where we're really thinking specifically about how we're investing and growing wealth outside of the practice. But it's that phase 2. It's so many that we've got to make that shift. We've got to turn that corner into keeping more of what we're making.
So let's dive into profitability a little bit further.
Sure.
If you had to give us 3 main areas that you think most firms could improve upon starting right now when it comes to profitability.
Yeah.
I'll put you on the spot there.
Sure.
Whether it's 2, that's fine, but a couple.
I think number 1 is your billing and collections. It's a surprising fact that some clients don't pay. And a lot of law firms are running huge AR deficits. There are bills out there that they haven't collected on. There are clients out there, they've done work and they haven't been paid. So we've got to fix the billing and cash flow cycle. There are a lot of different ways to go about that, whether it's collecting earlier, getting the clients to pay up front. We really love and advocate for alternative billing models, right? Maybe it's a flat fee system. Maybe it's a recurring fee, something like that. And that might be, part number 2, right? About how you improve profitability. How can we think about alternative revenue streams in our business? Not just, the core legal work we're doing, but are there other add-on services that we could provide? Are there corollaries? Is there another practice area that meshes really well with what we're doing that we could incorporate? Could we have some kind of subscription service where clients could get access to us and have a base level of legal services? So I really encourage clients to think creatively and think about how else they could, boost their productivity, boost their revenue and their profitability in alternative ways. I think those are probably the quick wins, right? Collecting on what you're billing first, and then thinking more creatively about how you can grow revenue.
Have you started to see any of your law firm clients utilize AI to become more efficient and improve profitability?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing it all over the place. We are seeing a lot of usage in marketing, from creating content to even dialing, even answering the phone and doing intake. I'm seeing AI being used there. I am even seeing AI being used in the court process. So here's a fun way you could use AI. You could tell AI to pretend AI is a particular judge, and I'm going to argue to you and argue back to me and tell me, what I could do to improve, right? Almost as a coach, using AI as a coach or a consultant. So yeah, I think it's still a long way off from like mass adoptability. I think we're still probably in the early adopters phase. Because a lot of law firm owners and lawyers are, I think, a bit afraid or a bit concerned about AI, but I am seeing a lot of people start to use it, and I think it makes a lot of sense in helping you improve your efficiency.
Well, it just makes sense, right? I mean, with law firms, we're talking about service providers.
Yeah.
And in most cases, the lawyer is spending most of their time working in their business rather than on it, right? It is their service, it's their legal service that is what they're selling and where they're spending most of their time. So it's been fascinating, just even in the last 6 months, and Tanner and I have spoke to, different guests from different walks of life and in areas of this business, and the different ways, and you just mentioned a few, that AI is starting to work its way into the business model.
Right.
And I think for a business like a law firm where they spend so much time working in the business, they can be much more efficient in that end of it and spend more time working on the business, which I'm sure you would agree is just one of those key steps to profitability, right? Especially if you're talking about, long-term value of the business.
Yes. The danger is most law firm owners are, I think, like me in that we have to be busy, right? And so, let it free up your time, but then make sure you're using that time for higher level thinking, working on your business, as you said, because, people who are, more like workaholic like me tend to just fill up that time with other busy work.
Darren, I'm curious. I mean, you work exclusively with law firms, and you hear, I'm sure, especially in the world of finance, you hear a lot of emotion in communication. Finances tend to bring out emotion. They can also bring out a lot of fear or struggle from day to day. And so I'm curious to hear, just directly tied to the topic of this episode, what is keeping attorneys up at night right now related to finances, and more importantly, what are you doing to work them through those struggles?
I think the biggest thing that's keeping law firm owners up at night is I'm on this hamster wheel and I don't know how to get off. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Law firm owner client is running a 10-person personal injury practice, making $1 million a year, like in personal income. The firm's making more, but his take home is $1 million a year. But he doesn't have $1 million, right? He has hardly any retirement savings. I see this all the time. This is like the biggest thing I see. I see high income law firm owners who are making great money, but they are spending all of it. Their lifestyle has grown to a point where, it's matched their income. They've kind of grown their lifestyle with their income and haven't started to really save and accrue money like they need to. Now, I get it, right? This is great. You think you can be a law firm owner indefinitely and maintain this level of income. Sounds great. What do I need to save for? I can make $1 million a year for as long as I want. But can you? I mean, let's think about this. There are big shifts happening in the market. AI is coming in. Businesses don't last forever. Competition may change. The legal landscape may change. The technology landscape may change. So many things can change. And, this is really a lesson I learned from my dad and why he was such a good saver. I mean, my dad saved and built a great amount of money for himself. But he was very frugal, and that's why. I mean, he made good money, but he was very frugal. And it all came from this idea. He was always worried that the rug was going to be pulled out from under him any minute. And so he wanted to save as much as he could of every dollar that he made. And it turned out very well for him because he retired very wealthy. So it's easy to get comfortable as a business owner and think business is great. I can do this forever, no problem. But there's a lot of risk there. And the biggest way to ensure against risk for yourself is to build your wealth outside the business so that you don't have to depend on the business. That's a great spot to be in, I think.
How much time do you spend with your clients talking about an exit strategy?
A lot. Yeah. It's probably one of the top 3 or 4 things that clients talk about. Not everybody is thinking proactively about exit. I find that law firm owners who are maybe in their 60s are thinking more so about exit planning. And there's a real desire. There's a real desire to, let's say you have a small practice, be able to have an associate in the practice step up and take over, or be able to sell to an outside firm. There's a real desire there. I think there's a shift maybe that happens because I don't see exit planning as a big topic among maybe 40 to 50 somethings. I think when you're in your 40s and 50s, you feel like, oh yeah, I could do this forever. And then as you get older, you're like, no, I want to get out of this. You know what I mean? So I think there's perhaps a shift that happens as you get older and you start thinking more about exit strategy. I think the law firm owners who are talking about it the most are the small firm, solo and small firm, maybe 5-person team, somewhere around that, 3 to 5 people. If you have a business where it's 10 to 20 size team, you're probably in a position where you've done enough to delegate it that you're out of the day-to-day work, and so it's less of a challenge to keep running it and keep stay involved and keep working. But those who are really heavily involved in the legal work itself, I find are the ones who are most interested in thinking about exit planning.
What are some steps, and I imagine everything that we've just talked about is included here, but some steps that owners can take early on to make that exit strategy easier? Or what are some pitfalls that they absolutely should avoid?
Yeah, the absolute biggest thing is to do everything you can to get your business to run without you. That's the biggest thing. So there are 3, what we call the top 3 value drivers for any business, and the top 3 value drivers for law firms too. The first one is owner independence. So, and exit planning is really just good business strategy. If you're thinking from day one, how do I build this business in such a way that I could sell it, someone else could step in and take over, you're not only getting it ready for potential sale, you're building a great business that you're going to love. And I'll tell you why. Because the biggest thing is getting the business to run without you as much as possible. If you can do that, if you can achieve that, you've built a business that can potentially be sold. But not only that, you've built a business that you probably love because it doesn't require as much direct involvement from you as another business. So that's the biggest thing is owner independence. How do I get this business to be independent from me? And then thinking about how you grow the value and the attractiveness of the business. Okay. it's tough to plan what exactly your exit strategy is going to be 10, 15 years out, even a few years out, because things can change, right? You may have a successor lined up and then that successor may leave and go somewhere else, right? So it's difficult to know the exact pathway you're going to take, but the biggest thing you can do is to grow the attractiveness of the business. And I think there's two real drivers there. If you have a recurring revenue model, that's going to be very attractive to somebody. You have clients that are loyal to the brand, that are repeat clients, that are going to continue. And the other thing is having a really strong market position. If you have a really well-developed niche, really focused niche, and you're the leader in that space, like being the go-to financial planner for law firm owners, right? Then someone's going to want your business because competition is going to be low. So
We're starting to talk like a marketing guy now, Darren.
you're right. But it all relates and it all ties together, right? And so what we often say is exit strategy is just good business strategy. Exit planning is just good business planning. It really is.
What I'm hearing from you, and really the DNA, the core of a lot of things you've been talking about, is the discipline and the intentionality of your money, of your investments, of your time. And I think as we land the plane here in this conversation, many attorneys who may not have even started thinking down this road, or maybe they're, like you said, 15, 20 years outside of retirement, this hasn't even crossed their mind. At what threshold should an attorney actually begin to seek financial guidance from a strategist or a consultant?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I've never really thought about a particular threshold, but I think definitely as you're approaching the 7-figure mark in terms of firm revenue, it's a really good time to bring someone on to think specifically about tax planning and cash flow, but you don't have to necessarily wait that long. I think if you're a solo doing 500,000 or more, it's time to, and you want to grow, then it's time to build out the team. But definitely once you hit the 7-figure mark, it's time to build the team. And the team involves a lot of people, right? A bookkeeper, a really good CPA, a financial planner like us, maybe a business coach. It really takes a whole team to really, and the most successful law firm owners that I've seen have a really well-developed team that they rely on.
I agree. Thank you, Darren. Really enjoyed the discussion. What's the easiest way for listeners to contact you?
Tell you what, it's super easy. Just go to lawyermillionaire.com. You can learn all about us. And if you want to chat with me, you can book a time there.
Fantastic. Were there any questions that you would have wished we would have asked you that we didn't turn the corner on?
Oh boy. I think we covered a lot of really good stuff, but I'll leave your listeners with one thought here. And by the way, we have a book club for our clients and anyone, really any law firm owner who wants to join. It's at community.lawyermillionaire.com. And one of the books we read recently was The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And it was just so great. A lot of really, really wonderful nuggets in there. But I think one of the best things he said was the biggest trick in life is to get the goalposts to stop moving. I think that's really applicable to business owners, to law firm owners, because we often have this mistaken idea that once I get to X revenue, everything will be fine. And it doesn't happen that way. Once I get to this income level, I'll be set. But then when you get there, you're like, oh, wait, I need more. Right? So figuring out how, a lifestyle at which you are comfortable and happy and content, and letting everything on top be gravy, that is one of the hardest things to do in life, but it will help you be the most successful, I really feel.
Thank you, Darren. Really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you.